Chapter 251, Heaven Opening Mountain. On the stage, Li Hong held his long staff and began approaching Yi Yun. As he approached, his aura grew stronger. What's wrong? Isn't your saber very fast? Use any of the hidden saber moves you have. When I blocked all of your saber moves, then it will be the end. Li Hong was extremely confident in his defense capabilities. Yi Yun's eyes flashed with a cold beam. He slowly rotated his blade. What Li Hong had said was in fact correct. What Yi Yun was lacking the most in his martial arts was combat experience. Li Hong had slaughtered numerous desolate beasts in the divine wilderness. This benefited both his staff techniques and combat experience greatly. Although other weaker children of family clans might not kill desolate beasts as rookies, they would still often spar with their peers while growing up. Actual combat was the best way to hone one's fighting techniques. But for Yi Yun, the number of big battles he had experienced could be counted with his fingers. Besides the sparring with Lin Xintong and the slaughtering of fierce beasts in the desolate human valley, there was only the Jin Longwei selection and the current rookie ranking competition. Yi Yun was very serious in every battle, especially in battles with people of similar strength as himself. This was a test he had to undergo, and also the best way for him to hone his saber techniques. Since you want to see my saber moves, I'll grant you your wish. Yi Yun took a few steps forward and the Yuan Qi in his body started surging. His energy followed the saber truth's 32 words flows and circulated within his meridians. Reigning supreme. With the 1,000 army saber in hand, Yi Yun slashed downwards. A green flash gushed out like a bright crescent light, and gushed towards Li Hong with domineering momentum. Li Hong roared and his earth-yellow qi surged, making the scales on his body expand. Yi Yun's saber slashed heavily onto Li Hong's body. Boom! With a violent explosion, Li Hong's scales ruptured. Due to the intense blade beam, Li Hong was sent flying. Li Hong's body slammed heavily into the divine wilderness stage's wall. The intense vibrations caused the weapons hanging on the walls to drop to the floor. Seeing this scene, people unconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Yi Yun's saber was extremely powerful. He. Good move. Li Hong was half-sitting by the corner of the wall. The scale armor on his body now had a 2-foot-long gash, going from his chest all the way to the waist. The scales around the gash had been completely broken by Yi Yun's attack. But after breaking through the scale armor, the saber move had expended most of its energy. It did not manage to break through Li Hong's protective Yuan Qi and only gave him slight injuries. Li Hong rubbed the blood off his lips and stood up. The scale armor on his body was rapidly repairing itself with a surge of his earth-yellow Yuan Qi. Your saber moves are not bad, but unfortunately you do not have enough Yuan Qi. Just a little bit more and you would have been able to hurt me. I was just testing the defense of my heaven opening technique. That was the only chance you had of hurting me. You sure are full of nonsense. Yi Yun frowned. Li Hong's defense was indeed strong. Li Hong had taken the move Yi Yun learned from the saber truth's 32 words head-on, without even dodging. It's not too late for you to become complacent after you take on my second attack. Yi Yun swiped with his 1,000 army saber and a horrifying burst of killing intent surged out. The saber was a weapon that was used to kill. In mortal countries, sabers were banned unlike swords. Swords were ceremonial weapons. Emperors, gentlemen and scholars would choose a sword. But a saber was different. People who used a saber were people who really wanted to kill. The owner of the saber tomb had inscribed the killing way of the saber into the saber truth's 32 words. Suddenly it seemed like a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood appeared behind Yi Yun. And where Yi Yun stood, the area had now turned into a blood pool hell. Killing at its core. The 1,000 army saber slashed forward and the blood waves gushed. The entire divine wilderness stage seemed to turn into a world of blood. Seeing the saber slash forward, Li Hong's eyes burned with fighting spirit. Come forth, Heaven-Opening Mountain. Li Hong hit his staff onto the stage and Earth Yellow Yuan Qi surged into the Divine Wilderness stage. Boom! The ground trembled and a mountain sprang up from beneath Li Hong's feet. This mountain was majestic. This was a mountain formed from Heaven Earth Yuan Qi by Li Hong, but it was no different than a real mountain. Oh! This is? Yi Yun was shocked. Seeing a mountain suddenly appear before him, how could he not be shocked? Although Yi Yun was shocked, the Thousand Army saber still cleaved downwards without hesitation. Kill! The saber slashed downwards, sending out a blood beam that spread tens of meters wide. However, this blood beam was completely blocked by the mountain. Li Hong had formed a mountain to take on Yi Yun's killer move. Cha! A ear-piercing sound rang. The Thousand Army saber's blade beam slashed into the mountain, making a hole about 7 meters deep. Although it caused a deep hole, it could no longer go any further. Even after the blade beam's Yuan Qi was completely expended, this mountain still floated above Li Hong's head. The mountain was more than 20 meters tall, and its base was tens of meters in radius. It did not sound large, but it looked very shocking in person. This mountain had a terrifying weight. If it was not by using the powers of the laws, Li Hong would definitely not be able to lift it. This was really the strength of lifting a mountain. The audience became dumbfounded. This was too great an exaggeration. To use a small mountain to block Yi Yun's attack? This is the law of the lands. Right, Li Hong's Yuan Qi was earth yellow in color. An earth yellow Yuan Qi of the lands is most suitable for the heaven opening technique that focuses on defense. By injecting the Yuan Qi of the lands into the heaven opening real Qi to form the scale armor, he can increase his defense by another level. Blending the law of the lands into the heaven opening technique, Li Hong is a real genius. Many people cannot even learn the heaven opening technique, let alone combine the laws they know into the heaven opening technique. Li Hong, who was ranked number 1 amongst the second-year cultivators, was not an average person. Also, he was about to break through into the Yuan Foundation realm. The Yuan Foundation he had formed within his Dantian was already in its embryonic form. This Yuan Foundation embryonic form gave Li Hong plenty of energy. This was also the foundation that allowed him to use the Yuan Qi of the lands to form this small mountain. If it was Chu Xiaoran, although she was accomplished in the frost ice laws, she could only form tens of ice columns by consuming a large portion of her Yuan Qi. Previously, after exchanging 2 blows with Yi Yun, she had completely depleted her Yuan Qi. This was the benefit of being at the peak of Purple Blood Realm, or the Quasi-Yuan Foundation realm. The difference in cultivation level was something difficult to overcome when both parties were geniuses. Seeing the 7-meter deep gash on the mountain, Li Hong laughed. How can a saber slash apart a mountain? Your attack is not bad, but unfortunately, I have formed this mountain. You will never be able to split it apart. Li Hong picked up his staff. He had consumed a great deal of Yuan Qi by forming the mountain. Heaven Opening Mountain was a manifestation of Li Hong's law of the lands. Once it was formed, it pushed Li Hong's combat power to its extremes. I see, law of the lands. Yi Yun squinted and looked at the mountain in the sky. After all, Chu Xiaoran had managed to control the power of the laws, while Li Hong had spent a year in the Tai A Divine City. He had experienced slaughters in the Divine Wilderness, so how could Li Hong be unable to learn any laws? As the best second-year cultivator, he definitely had something worth presenting. The power of laws is something that I am in urgent need of. Yi Yun thought. That is as far as you go. By having to use the Heaven Opening Mountain to defeat you, it is something you can be proud of. Li Hong smashed with the staff. Boom! The mountain trembled and the entire mountain crashed towards Yi Yun. He was using an entire mountain as a weapon to attack? This was a real eye-opener for the audience. Such a mountain formed from Yuan Qi was not something the Thousand Army saber would be able to block. Indeed, Yi Yun did not try to resist it. He used his minute subtlety movement techniques to retreat. Boom! The mountain crashed into the divine wilderness stage. People felt the entire arena tremble like a minor earthquake. To be crushed by that mountain, it will probably cause death. People broke into cold sweat. In the Taya divine city, killing someone in a battle was subject to at least imprisonment. But at this moment, Li Hong's eyes were red with murderous intent. How could he be bothered with imprisonment? In the crowd, Yang Dingquan grinned. Li Hong had not disappointed him. By conjuring the heaven-opening mountain, Li Hong had gained complete control over the situation. He was looking forward to seeing Li Hong smash Yi Yun into smithereens. If that happened, not only would he win the Taya sacred technique, he could also have one less talented competitor that made him jealous in the future. Actually, if he had his way, Yang Dingquan wished that all of the geniuses in the Taya divine city, like Qin Haotian, Li Xiao and the Qiao brothers, would all die in their training excursions. The heaven-opening mountain smashed downwards again and again, but Yi Yun managed to dodge it each time. Although it looked like each attack imperiled Yi Yun, he managed to escape unscathed every time. Facing different opponents who used different battle techniques had broadened Yi Yun's horizons. A person like Li Hong gave Yi Yun an impression of a greedy and sinister person. It was unexpected that he could use such methods in the arena. Yi Yun was cognizant of the fact that he had just embarked onto the path of martial arts. He would face a variety of opponents in the future. Some of them might not even be part of the human race. They had all sorts of strange moves. If he did not take the opportunity to hone himself and broaden his horizons now, he might suffer greatly in the future. The battle became more and more intense. Everyone stared wide-eyed, afraid to miss out on any of the exciting scenes. The audience gradually realized that Yi Yun's movement was extremely fast. While Li Hong's mountain was huge and fast because it was powered by the laws, it was still difficult for it to crush Yi Yun. And it seemed that Yi Yun had such a strategy in mind as he dodged again and again using minute subtlety. Yuan Qi had to be consumed to power a mountain. It was not something that could be sustained. At this moment, Li Hong grinned. Trying to expend my stamina? Do you think my heaven-opening mountain is that simple? By willing it and pointing with his staff, split. Boom! A thunderous rumble sounded, and the heaven-opening mountain exploded in the air, splitting into rocks of various sizes. Like stars in the sky, they enveloped the divine wilderness stage. The larger rocks were the size of a face basin, while the smaller ones were the size of a fist. The rocks were densely packed and surrounded Yi Yun. Do you think your minute subtlety is that great? How are you to dodge my attack now? Chapter 252, Radiant Sun. Minute subtlety was indeed amazing. But no matter how great a person's movement was, it would be impossible to dodge an attack that was densely packed, leaving no space for one to burrow through. Yi Yun was surrounded by rocks. The audience could no longer see what was happening on the stage due to the rocks blocking their line of sight. What is happening on stage? Damn it, I can't see. Someone was so anxious that he wished he could drill through the rocks just to see how the battle between Yi Yun and Li Hong was going. Li Hong's law of the lands should have already reached the second stage. Every law had its own grade system. The higher one gained insight into one, the harder it was to progress. Li Hong could use Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi to conjure a mountain. Being able to use the mountain to both attack and defend, this was the first stage of the law of the lands. And to be able to split and conjoin the mountain, to the point of changing it into numerous smaller stones, in which each stone could be controlled according to one's thoughts, this was the second stage of the law of the lands. Going further, the law of the lands became even more powerful. For example, it could cause the earth to spew out molten lava and then control the power of the lava. Another example would be to control gravity. These were all different levels that the law of the lands had. Of course, ignoring Purple Blood Warriors, even Yuan Foundation Realm Warriors would not be able to reach that stage. It was too difficult. Yi Yun, if you kneel down and beg for mercy, I can still terminate this attack. If I strike, I will no longer be able to control whether you die or not. Li Hong reminded Yi Yun. It was not that he did not want to kill Yi Yun, he did, but he did not want to endure the punishment of imprisonment. Although people could not see Li Hong, they could still hear him. Hearing that Li Hong was about to issue a strike that would leave Yi Yun's life up in the air, the spectators held their breaths. By seeing Li Hong control the mountain and make it slam into the stage, which caused the entire arena to quake, everyone couldn't help but believe in Li Hong's words. It was possible that when the mountain came crushing down on Yi Yun would become nothing more than a bloody pulp. If Yi Yun wanted to break through this move, he would have to use a hidden saber move with indomitable strength to slash a path out. And then, with extreme speed, Yi Yun could fly out through that path. That was the only way he could possibly survive. But the point is, how would Yi Yun's saber split open a path for him? Everyone was eager to see if he could do it. On the Divine Wilderness stage, Yi Yun's Yuan Qi was surging. He looked at the rocks that completely blocked his vision. He interfaced his spiritual energy with the purple crystal and opened his energy vision. With the energy vision, Yi Yun could see that each rock was made out of energy. They did not stand independently and they all had an energy link with Li Hong. Oh! All of this energy is part of the laws of the lands. Yi Yun frowned. He could clearly see the energy circulating within each rock, but he could feel that the energy circulating within them was not perfect. There were many spots that were far from perfect. Comparing it to the energy flow of the Saber-Tomb's 32 words, the difference was even more obvious. Yi Yun, did you not hear me? Do you really not know the meaning of death? Seeing that Yi Yun had no intentions of replying and just stood there, pondering over something, Li Hong fumed. Since you want to die, I will grant you your wish. Li Hong roared as the staff in his hand shot out a wave of earth-yellow qi that swept through everything like a surging tide. All the rocks that were floating in the air above the Divine Wilderness stage began to shake. A few of the law enforcers by the stands stood up. They were circulating their Yuan Qi and using their spiritual energy to see through the layers of rock, locking onto Yi Yun's body. They were ready to take action at any time. They would not stop the match, but once it was clear that one party was going to lose, they would save him. They could not sit idly by and look at the number one genius rookie getting killed by Li Hong. The atmosphere tensed up into an unprecedented fashion. Everyone's heartbeats seemed to stop. Li Hong laughed and leapt up high. His staff seemed to connect the heaven and earth. At that moment, Li Hong seemed to start emitting the same pressure as a mountain. Suppressing mountain attack. Li Hong roared as he swung his staff downwards. The numerous rocks surrounding them were swept up by the staff and they charged towards Yi Yun. The attack had no blind spots and the rocks were interconnecting to the point that even a rat could not escape. Numerous rocks smashed downwards with Yi Yun at the center. Every blink of an eye, thousands of rocks would bombard him. And Yi Yun did not escape at all. Boom! 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 The rocks crashed into each other, emitting ear-splitting booms. The entire arena was shaking. People watched with their mouths wide open as the spot that Yi Yun was standing on became engulfed by flying rocks. A huge rock was forming at that spot rapidly. Did Yi Yun not dodge the rocks? Many people were shocked. They originally thought that when the rocks fell down on Yi Yun, he would use a hidden saber move to cut a path open. But he didn't. The rocks quickly piled up and the mountain of rocks grew taller. Heavens! Yi Yun! Many people stared wide-eyed at the mountain of rocks. Many suspected that Yi Yun had now been turned into a bloody mess. Li Hong's eyes were ferocious. He was so immersed in trying to kill Yi Yun that he no longer took imprisonment into account. Die! The rocks started to combine again, reforming the mountain that stood over 20 meters tall. As this happened, Li Hong descended from the sky. With a heavy whack, he hit the mountain. Boom! The power of this attack passed through the mountain's outer shell, all the way to its center. The entire divine wilderness stage shook once more. Li Hong stood above the heaven-opening mountain's peak. His staff was now stuck deeply in the mountain. The mountain was formed from Li Hong's Yuan Qi, so it would not hinder his attack. All the power within his attack had been perfectly transmitted to Yi Yun's body. Being crushed by a mountain that exceeded 10 million pounds and then being hit with Li Hong's one attack, had Yi Yun already been turned into meat sauce? There was total silence. Only the sound of Li Hong's last attack echoed around the arena. Is he dead? Someone said with a trembling voice. Yi Yun's friends, Song Zijuan and company, all felt like they had their hearts in their mouth. Zhao Qingqing nearly screamed out loud. Ha! Very good. In a corner of the arena, Yang Dingkuan grinned maliciously. He was very pleased with this result. Even if Yi Yun did not die, he was most likely crippled. Maybe all of his meridians were now broken to the point that even the best medicine would be unable to cure him. Oh. That is. Yang Dingkuan was suddenly shocked. He saw that a dark red liquid was oozing out from the cracks in the rocks at the bottom of the heaven-opening mountain. What is that? Usually, dark red liquid would be blood, but this liquid was clearly different from blood. It was thick and torpid. There were even boiling bubbles popping in it, and it appeared to be extremely hot. This is magma. Not only Yang Dingkuan, but now, the entire audience had noticed the magma that was oozing out from the rocks. More and more oozed out, thickening the liquid. Magma. What happened? Did Li Hong's law of the lands reach the point of being able to melt the mountain into magma? When the law of the lands reached a higher realm, it could indeed manipulate magma. Magma was the anger of the earth. A peak human lord who had an affinity with earth could cause a volcano to erupt with a simple wish. But it was impossible for Li Hong to have already reached that stage. How could it be? Manipulating magma. Yi Yun? What happened to Yi Yun? People were now very anxious and looked at the law enforcers. Why haven't the law enforcers done anything yet? But the few law enforcers who were in charge of the match only had odd looks on their faces and did not take any action. Above the heaven-opening mountain peak, Li Hong was also stunned. Magma. He was the person most aware of his own strength. He knew that he was far from being able to manipulate magma. How could the heaven-opening mountain create magma? Li Hong asked himself in an incredulous manner. At this moment, more and more magma gushed out. The mountain became hotter and Li Hong could feel a blast of hot air streaming out of it. He could no longer stand above the heaven-opening mountain. He could even feel that, as the amount of magma increased, the heaven-opening mountain melted more and more. The heaven-opening mountain, which was now soaking in magma, was like a candy that was dissolving in water. It was getting smaller. How is this happening? Li Hong was greatly alarmed. At this moment, he could hear a faint sound. Suddenly, purple gas surged out from the entire heaven-opening mountain. Oh! Li Hong was surprised and leapt off the heaven-opening mountain's peak. A few seconds after he jumped off, searing flames appeared on the mountain peak. Hoo! 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 Hot pure yang fire burned, covering the entire heaven-opening mountain. It was like a sun rising out of the heaven-opening mountain. Swaths of purple gas tumbled woefully into the flames as they soared to the sky. All the pure yang qi in a radius of several miles was pulled over. The yang qi mixed with the purple gas and became a part of it. Now, it was noon, and the sun was scorching and purple gas was being emitted. Above the arena, the purple gas was slowly condensing into a long valley. The blurred valley had trees and flowing rivers. But these trees and flowing rivers seemed to faintly burn within the purple gas. This is... Li Hong stared at the valley with his eyes wide open. All of the veteran cultivators in the audience suddenly had inexplicable horrific looks on their faces. The rookies were in muddled states, they did not know what the purple gas represented. Radiant Sun Chi. It's Radiant Sun Chi. A veteran cultivator shouted in an incredulous manner. Not only is it Radiant Sun Chi, it is the Tang Valley stage of the Radiant Sun Chi. Who has mastered this level of Radiant Sun Chi? Many people did not react in time, but when the rookies heard it, they were stunned. Although they had never seen Radiant Sun Chi before, they had still heard of the famous Radiant Sun Chi. Radiant Sun Chi came from the Taiya sacred technique and it was the strongest power in the Taiya divine kingdom. It was also the greatest inheritance of the Taiya divine kingdom. More and more magma appeared on the stage. The mountain was now glowing red hot and slowly melting. People began to arrive at a realization of the impossible possibility. Yi Yun, didn't he exchange for the Taiya sacred technique? When someone said that, everyone held their breaths. Yi Yun. He had exchanged for the Taiya sacred technique less than 2 months ago. He was a rookie and his cultivation level was just at the peak of the middle stages of purple blood. He had already mastered the Radiant Sun Chi? And it was even at the Tang Valley stage of the Radiant Sun Chi. What a joke! At this moment, in the central divine tower, Song Yan and Jiangu were playing chess and watching a video projection of the battle going on using a disc array. The disc array was locked in place and it had been set up perfectly represent the ongoings happening in the arena. After confirming that Yi Yun had learned the Saber Truth's 32 words, Song Yan and Jiangu did not feel the need to watch Yi Yun and Li Hong's battle in person. It was enough to watch Yi Yun using the video projection. They were originally just watching without paying a lot of attention, that was until Li Hong used his killer move. Only then did they start paying attention to the match. They were worried that Yi Yun might not be able to handle the attack, but seeing Radiant Sun Chi gush out, Song Yan nearly flipped the chessboard. This kid. Am I seeing things? Old man Jian, did you see that? Song Yan asked Jiangu. Jiangu said with a speechless expression, I am looking at it. It's the Tang Valley stage of Radiant Sun Chi. Yi Yun has only been practicing the Taiya sacred technique for less than 2 months, it's really impressive. By giving Yi Yun this evaluation, Elder Jiangu had already praised him a few times. Under normal circumstances, it was very difficult for a junior to be praised by a sage even once. Only 2 months had passed since Yi Yun picked the primordial herb and used the glory points he obtained from it to exchange for the Taiya sacred technique. But no one knew that after exchanging the Taiya sacred technique, Yi Yun had actually only used about 10 days to master the Radiant Sun Chi. If Elder Jiangu knew this, he would become even more astonished. At this moment, in the arena, the amount of magma had increased and had started to flow off the Divine Wilderness stage. Most people had by now guessed that Yi Yun had mastered the Taiya sacred technique, but there were still some who insisted that this was impossible. At this moment, a ear-piercing sound rang out. In the middle of the Divine Wilderness stage, a purple blade beam had risen out from the heaven-opening mountain. At that moment, it seemed like that blade beam had become the only thing in existence. The blade beam was tens of meters long and it split the humongous heaven-opening mountain in two. Cha! The heaven-opening mountain violently trembled and the 2 parts of the mountain collapsed. People could then see that the middle of the heaven-opening mountain had completely melted, leaving behind a gaping hole. And a youth in linen clothes, holding a long saber, stood where the hole originally was. Above him, lava rain splattered down, while beneath his feet, lava surged. But this surging lava was blocked by the pure Yang Qi and did not even come close to the youth. Everyone stared widely and were completely stunned. Yi Yun's Radiant Sun Chi had split the heaven-opening mountain apart with one attack. People knew that when the heaven-opening mountain crashed down, Yi Yun had used his Radiant Sun Chi to melt out a place for him to take shelter. He was unscathed from beginning to end. Author's note: today is the eve of the Lunar New Year. A 4,000-character chapter has been offered to everyone, wishing everyone a happy year of the monkey, and wishing everyone the best in everything. About that, can I get a monthly vote as a red packet? Translator's note: if you would like to donate to the author, you can donate to me and leave a note that it is for the author. I will transfer the money to the author with proof. Chapter 253, Defeating Li Hong. In the arena, Li Hong looked at the heaven-opening mountain that had been split into two. It was as if he had lost his soul. As for Yang Dingquan, who bragged about mastering the Taya sacred technique in 5 months, he grasped his seat's armrests tightly with his hands until his fingers turned white. Radiant Sun Chi, Radiant Sun Chi. Has he mastered the Taya sacred technique? 2 months ago, when Yi Yun managed to obtain some glory points due to his tremendous luck, he had been ridiculed for exchanging them for the Taya sacred technique. A hick had actually wanted to cultivate the royal family's secret technique. But now, all those people who had ridiculed Yi Yun could no longer say anything. Not only did Yi Yun master the Taya sacred technique, he had also succeeded in forming the Tang Valley stage of Radiant Sun Chi. In just 2 months, Yi Yun shamed Qin Haotian, Luo Hoyer, Li Xiao and all the geniuses that hogged the top spots on the heaven and earth rolls in the Taya Divine City in terms of cultivating the Taya sacred technique. Li Hong looked at Yi Yun as he clenched his fists. He was a genius with a wide circle of connections. Everyone said he was a dragon amongst people and that he was destined for great things. He had mastered that heaven-opening technique, a top 3 technique in the Taya Divine City. It was an outstanding result, but now it was a joke compared to Yi Yun's mastering of the Taya sacred technique in 2 months. Before the battle, he tried to imagine Yi Yun's hidden cards and he guessed that the most that Yi Yun had was a few hidden saber moves. He never expected that Yi Yun's hidden strength was the Radiant Sun Chi. You mastered the Taya sacred technique before the competition? Li Hong gnashed his teeth as he said it. He suddenly realized that Yi Yun had laid a trap for him from the beginning. It was trap for him to jump into. Yi Yun said, "That's right. I managed to master the Taya sacred technique before the rookie competition. But you don't have to think so highly of yourself. I did not reveal all my strength not because of you. The main reason was for me to hone my saber moves. I only learned my saber moves after the rookie competition began. I just needed opponents to refine it. Whether it was Chunyo or Chu Shaoran, they were the best amongst the rookies. So I benefited greatly by sparring with them. As for laying a trap for you, it was just in passing. I did not expect that not only did you use dragon scale runes as stake, you even bet a truth of the laws book." Yi Yun did not need to take the opponents before Lu Yuxing seriously. They were not qualified to hone Yi Yun's saber skills. Xionyou and Chu Shaoran were the perfect candidates to test his saber truth's 32 words. After Yi Yun said that, he casually glanced at the audience. Yang Dingquan, who was standing in the corner of the spectator stands, had a grim expression. Yi Yun had treated him as a sucker. The sarcastic tone was harsh on Yang Dingquan's ears. Yang Dingquan clenched his fists as killing intent flashed in his eyes. Yi Yun had seen all of it. Before, as Yi Yun was waiting to go onto the stage, Zhao Qingcheng had already pointed Yang Dingquan out to Yi Yun. Yi Yun had recognized this Chu royal residence's little prince who tried to take advantage of the situation to profit by cheating him. Yi Yun did not fear Yang Dingquan. Although the Chu royal residence was part of the royal family, it was only a distant relation of the royal family. They had a high noble title and they were powerful, but even so, a young master from the Chu royal residence had limited power. How many people were there in the younger generation of the Chu royal residence? It was not easy to count. The current King Chu had already lived for 1,000 years. In 1,000 years, how many wives did he marry? How many children did he have? Even King Chu himself might not remember. It was hard to count the bastard children, legitimate children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren even if they were all added up. Yang Dingquan was only one of the better ones of the younger generation, but he was not a greatly appreciated child of King Chu, because he was not the heir. This was why Yang Dingquan had to use gambling as a way to obtain the Taya sacred technique from his bet with Yi Yun. He could not rely on the Chu royal residence, which resulted in him machinating his own schemes. Hearing Yi Yun's remark, Li Hong's face turned red. Just in passing? Ah, just in passing. Li Hong was furious. Who do you think you are? So what if you have mastered the Taya sacred technique? I will make sure that you die today. Li Hong suddenly lurched forward and he swept the Yuan Qi of the land with his staff. Phew! Phew! The heaven-opening mountain that had been split apart by Yuan Qi turned back into pure Yuan Qi and it entered Li Hong's body. Li Hong knew that under the power of the radiant sun Qi, the heaven-opening mountain was useless. It was better for him to convert the heaven-opening mountain back into energy so he could use his strongest attack. Mountain opening staff. Li Hong roared loudly. After the staff in his hand was injected with Yuan Qi of the land, it grew from 6 feet to several meters long. The staff had thickened so much that it was as thick as a column. Most people would not use a thick column like the staff as a weapon since just holding it was strenuous, but because Li Hong's law of the lands powered it, he could use the thick staff as if it was a part of his body. The staff gave off a loud roar as it came crashing down like a mountain. Yi Yun gathered Qi in his dantian and the 1,000 army saber was outlined with a shiny flame. Purple gas emerged as radiant sun Qi burned. This was the first time that Yi Yun had really used all his strength, by using radiant sun Qi to power the Saber Truth's 32-word saber move. Reigning supreme. Sha! With a slash, a purple blade beam flashed and it made a deep gash in the purple tungsten stage. When Li Hong's thick staff collided with the saber, the rocks, that were formed from the Yuan Qi of the lands, melted as they came into contact with the radiant sun Qi. But Li Hong still moved forward. Boom! When Li Hong's staff and Yi Yun's 1,000 army saber collided, a chaotic blast erupted which caused people to hold their breaths. Upon impact, Yi Yun retreated about 30 meters, he had reached the edge of the stage. Li Hong had managed to force Yi Yun to retreat with the power of the lands, but he watched helplessly as a purple blade beam flashed forwards from the impact and had mercilessly pierced his protective Yuan Qi. Sha! The armor of the lands that Li Hong was proud of had been pierced by the purple beam and blood splattered out. Li Hong was injured. Yi Yun had only retreated but Li Hong was wounded. It was clear who had the upper hand. However, this attack was just the beginning. Yi Yun shot forward like lightning using the large success stage of minute subtlety. A series of blade shadows shot towards Li Hong. Li Hong had disintegrated the heaven-opening mountain and injected Yuan Qi of the lands into his staff to strengthen its attack, but by wielding such a large weapon, no matter how skillful Li Hong was with the law of the lands, he did not have the speed of the 1,000 army saber. Damn it! Li Hong focused his eyes and the scale armor around his body expanded. Heaven-opening armor! Li Hong had used the heaven-opening technique, which had outstanding defensive capabilities to take on Yi Yun's blade beam. This was what he was always doing when Yi Yun attacked. But this time, with the radiant sun Qi powering it, every blade beam was extremely sharp. Sha! 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 Li Hong was hit dozens of times by the blade beams, and they entered his body after cutting open his protective Yuan Qi. The scale armor from the heaven-opening technique melted under the radiant sun Qi's pure yang property. You said that a saber cannot slash apart a mountain? That's only because the saber is not sharp enough. And how can the rocks on a mountain withstand the sun's fire? Yi Yun attacked faster and fiercer. The incessant saber Qi was like a purple tidal wave as it charged at Li Hong. Boom! Li Hong's mountain opening staff cracked upon impact with Yi Yun's blade. The rocks melted into flowing lava. Li Hong's scale armor was quickly melting under the intense heat. The hot lava thinned Li Hong's protective Yuan Qi by burning it. Pwa! Yi Yun's saber hit Li Hong on his shoulder. Blood splattered on the stage as Li Hong retreated 30 meters. At this moment, a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood appeared behind Yi Yun. Blood burst out as ghosts wailed. It was as if Ashura hell had appeared in the mortal realm. Saber truth, killing at its core. Yi Yun immersed all his Yuan Qi into that attack. It slaughtered all life, breaking through the heavens. By being pushed to his limits, Li Hong gathered all his Yuan Qi and used his staff to block Yi Yun's attack. Boom! There was a fierce explosion and the color of red spread everywhere as if the sea of blood had burst. Li Hong was sent flying like a kite with a broken thread. He tumbled backwards and he heavily slammed into the protective wall of the Divine Wilderness stage. Ding dang! Li Hong lost hold of his staff due to the impact and it dropped onto the purple tungsten stage. The 6-foot-long staff had been split into two by Yi Yun's attack. What? Everyone was shocked to see the staff split in half. Li Hong's weapon was no ordinary weapon and it was most likely made by a famous master. Under normal circumstances, it was extremely difficult for weapons made by masters to break in a purple blood warrior duel. But Yi Yun had managed to do it. And in terms of quality, Li Hong's staff was likely better than Yi Yun's 1,000 army saber. How did that happen? Some people found it incomprehensible. The 1,000 army saber was not some divine weapon, but it still managed to break Li Hong's staff. It is due to the injection of Yuan Qi. Someone gasped. With the radiant sun Qi injected into the 1,000 army saber, a saber's sharpness would be completely different. It was impossible for Li Hong's Yuan Qi of the land to withstand the attack. Yi Yun has won. The result of the battle was clear. All of Li Hong's scale armor had been destroyed and his body's meridians had been invaded by radiant sun Qi. He was covered in injuries and he would be crippled if he carried on fighting. Yi Yun had defeated Li Hong. When Yi Yun revealed his radiant sun Qi, many people had guessed that this would happen, but when it really happened, they still found it unbelievable. Li Hong had spent one more year training in the Tai Divine City than Yi Yun and he was the best of the second years. His cultivation level was about to break through into the Yuan Foundation realm, yet he was finished by Yi Yun. Yi Yun was too terrifying. But people could see that Yi Yun had very little energy left. The radiant sun Qi was strong, but it also rapidly consumed Yuan Qi. Yi Yun was still limited in his cultivation level, so to power the radiant sun Qi at the peak of the middle stage of purple blood cultivation level was his limit to fight up to now. If he did not manage to defeat Li Hong with the final attack, Yi Yun would not have much energy left to carry on fighting. Author's note: it will be the year of the monkey in 20 minutes. The author of True Martial World, Cocoon Cow, wishes everyone a happy new year, hoping all the best in one's work and studies, fortunes and riches in the year of the monkey. Thank you for Singaporean Chinese, Talon's large red packet, and wishing all the Chinese friends around the world reading True Martial World, and the foreign friends reading the English translation of True Martial World a happy spring. In English, happy/Chinese/new/year. Chapter 254, Pure Yang Body. Translator, C. Talon. Editor, C. Talon. For this match, Yi Yun wins. The referee loudly announced the results of the match from the Divine Wilderness stage. When people heard this, they felt that they were still in a dream. Previously, when Li Hong had condensed the heaven-opening mountain, it was so overwhelming and shocking to the senses. It made people feel like using force to match him head-on was impossible. But he had been defeated by Yi Yun. His heaven-opening mountain and the staff had both been split apart by Yi Yun. Even Li Hong, who was ranked around 1,000 on the Earth roll, has been beaten by Yi Yun. Yi Yun is heaven-defying. He had nearly reached the 1,000th rank in a rookie ranking competition. In previous years, it was the utmost limit of just a few notable people to reach a ranking of around 1,000 at their first end-of-the-year competition. This was enough to make the Tai Divine Kingdom's large factions pay close attention to them and to draw them in. No one doubted that Yi Yun could secure a spot within the top 1,000 in another month or two. It might even not take that long to enter the top 1,000 of the Earth roll in less than a year. Was he still human? What say you? Is there a possibility that Yi Yun has the capability to enter the top 1,000 now? Someone said, but when the people present heard it, they were stunned. To enter the top 1,000 now? Upon further thinking, Yi Yun still had one more match in his rookie ranking competition. This is impossible. Someone said it. Although Yi Yun had defeated Li Hong in an overwhelming manner, he had consumed a lot of energy. It was unlikely he could enter the top 1,000 today. After all, the people in the top 1,000 were all Yuan Foundation Realm Warriors. To exchange blows with a Yuan Foundation Realm Warrior, just the other party's massive Yuan Qi quantity was enough to swamp you. No matter what, Yi Yun's results in this Tai Divine City rookie ranking competition was one that has not been seen in the past century. It was even more alarming that he had mastered the Tai Sacred Technique in 2 months. At that moment, in the corner of the spectator stands, Yang Dingquan was livid. When Li Hong had been sent flying by Yi Yun's attack and had his staff broken into 2, Yang Dingquan felt as if that attack hit his body as well. He lost. He lost 50,000 dragon scale runes and the truth of the laws as well. Li Hong would still have to return the 50,000 dragon scale runes to him, so he was not miserable over it. But the truth of the laws. It was the heritage of the Chu royal residence. Under normal circumstances, if an outsider wanted to learn the truth of the laws, they had to join the Chu royal residence. However, Yi Yun had previously rejected the Chu royal residence's invitation. But now, Yang Dingquan had lost the truth of the laws to Yi Yun. If his family learned of this, he would be punished. Thinking about being confined, having his resources deducted, or other more severe domestic disciplines, Yang Dingquan's face twitched. He clenched his fists tightly, and his arm trembled. How could this happen? Li Hong, this trash. He actually lost to that little bastard. Yang Dingquan grit his teeth. He was thinking how he could not give the truth of the laws to Yi Yun, but all the gambles in the Tai Divine City were under the jurisdiction of the law enforcers. The law enforcers were grim and impartial. It would be wishful thinking to take the truth of the laws back from the hands of the law enforcers. At that moment, a flame lit up in the arena, exploding out of thin air. Oh! In the spectator stands, the law enforcers were stunned. It's an announcement by the elders. A few of the law enforcers stood up and absorbed the information contained within the flames. It entered their ears immediately. Yi Yun. The 2 elders, Jian Ge and Song Yan, request your presence. The referee said to Yi Yun. This referee was also a law enforcer. When the surrounding cultivators heard this, they were speechless. Another summoning by the elders. How many times in the past 3 months has Yi Yun been summoned by the elders since he entered Tai Divine City? Most of the spectators had been in the Tai Divine City for several years and they had only gotten the rare chance of meeting the elders yesterday, all because of Yi Yun, let alone be summoned by them. If not for Yi Yun, would the Divine City's elders come personally to the arena to watch a rookie competition? This junior will set off now. Yi Yun cupped his fists at the referee. As he was about to leave, the referee asked, Yi Yun, you still have another match left today. Do you plan on continuing? Yi Yun's ranking was now 1028. If he made another challenge, he could really enter the top 1,000. Yi Yun hesitated for a while. To enter the top 1,000, he had to challenge Yuan Foundation Realm Warriors? He felt that in his current state, it was very difficult to skip a level to fight Yuan Foundation Realm Warriors. By using Radiant Sun Qi and powering the Sabertooth's 32 words with Radiant Sun Qi, Yi Yun could at most use Reigning Supreme or killing at its core 3 to 4 times. If the opponent could withstand his 4 attacks, he would lose. In the battle with Li Hong, Yi Yun had exposed his weaknesses. His cultivation level was low and he had insufficient yuan qi. If his opponents understood this thoroughly, they could use defensive tactics and make Yi Yun expend all his energy. If that happened, Yi Yun's chances of victory would be very tiny. Yi Yun shook his head, not for the time being. He would of course return to the arena. But now was not the time. Yi Yun had a lot to digest today. Also, Yi Yun wished to understand the nomological truths as soon as possible. With the power of laws assisting him, his yuan qi consumption efficiency would improve. As such, it would be able to make up for his lack of yuan qi. All right. The referee nodded. A law enforcer came before Yi Yun and said, "Follow me, I will take you to the Central Divine Tower." 15 minutes later, in the hall of the Central Divine Tower, Yi Yun met elders Jiangu and Song Yan. Once Yi Yun entered, Song Yan looked at Yi Yun as if he was a monster. On the other hand, Jiangu began to size up Yi Yun from top to bottom. "Kid, you actually managed to master the Taya sacred technique in 2 months?" Song Yan still found it incredible at that moment. Yi Yun did not know how to answer. Did he have to tell Song Yan that he actually only used 12 to 13 days to master it? Yi Yun's lack of an answer made Song Yan think he had made a silent affirmation. That's amazing. Way back then, Old Man Jian used 4 months to master the Taya sacred technique. You used half of the time Old Man Jian used. As Song Yan praised Yi Yun, he also revealed Jian Ji's shortcomings. Jiangu had initially wanted to say something else, but when he heard Song Yan's words, he became a bit embarrassed. With a cough, he slowly said, "Old Man Can, I recall that you took 5 months to master the Taya sacred technique? That is 1 month longer than me." Hearing Jian Ji's words, Song Yan's old face turned red, and just laughed it away. Learning the Taya sacred technique fast doesn't say anything. Although I was slower, I managed to become a sage 400 years earlier than you. Song Yan said proudly. Jiangu was rendered speechless upon hearing this. Old Man Can's skin was really thick. "Old fool, why don't you mention that you are 800 years older than me?" Jiangu and Song Yan became sages around the same time. They had a friendly relationship, so it was common for them to spat. But, in front of juniors, they would have to maintain their dignity and refrain from squabbling. Yi Yun felt flattered that the two of them behaved in such a manner in front of him. He knew that Song Yan and Jiangu had already treated him as a disciple amongst the juniors. As such, they acted freely, and they had no qualms doing so. This clearly indicated that the two old men appreciated him. Ha ha. Earlier means earlier. About that, kid. Song Yan turned towards Yi Yun. "I previously mentioned that those who learn the Taya sacred technique might not become a sage. That is indeed true. In the past 5,000 years, there are plenty of juniors who have learned the Taya sacred technique faster than me, but the number of them that became a sage can be counted with my fingers. Although you mastered the Taya sacred technique in 2 months, do not be complacent. You are still far from becoming a sage." Song Yan was afraid that Yi Yun's early accomplishment would get to his head, so he exhorted him. Having led 2 lives, Yi Yun of course understood this. He respectfully answered, "This junior understands." "All right." Song Yan nodded. Speaking of this, about 100,000 years ago, there was a person who left the fastest record of mastering the Taya sacred technique. That person did become a sage, and he was one of the best amongst the sages. Oh? There's a record for mastering the Taya sacred technique? Yi Yun stumbled for a while. There was even a record for the time it took to master the Taya sacred technique? If he knew that earlier, he would have declared so upon mastering it. Yi Yun felt a pity because the rewards from such a record was definitely handsome. He made a mental note to figure out what records he could break to quickly gain glory points. How long did that senior take to master the Taya sacred technique? Yi Yun asked. Song Yan extended 2 fingers and said, 20 days. 20 days. Yi-Yun was shocked, so fast. He knew that it was only due to the purple crystal that he mastered the Taya sacred technique in just over than 10 days. But there was someone in the history of the Taya divine kingdom that managed to master the Taya sacred technique using his own effort? What sort of talent was that? That person may have had his own fortuitous encounters, but Yi-Yun believed that no matter what it was, it could not be compared to the purple crystal. Are you surprised? I was surprised when I heard it too. In fact, that person had a pure yang body. So it was half the work with double results to learn the Taya sacred technique. Eventually, he was given the title of Pure Yang Immortal. He created the Pure Yang Palace, but unfortunately, the Pure Yang Palace has been destroyed. The way of the world is ephemeral, Song Yan slowly said. Yi-Yun was slightly stunned. A pure yang body? The Taya sacred technique was pure yang in nature, so it was a matter of course for a person with a pure yang body to master it quickly. With this in mind, it was no longer a pity for not reporting his record of mastering the Taya sacred technique. He did not have a pure yang body, so there was no way to explain how he mastered the Taya sacred technique in just over 10 days. But, the name pure yang body sounded familiar, as if. Yi-Yun suddenly had a thought. Lin Shinton. Didn't Lin Shinton have naturaline meridians? Due to her naturaline meridians, Lin Shinton had to travel around the world to search for a way to join up her terminated meridians. Yi-Yun owed a lot to Lin Shinton, and he had previously promised to find a way to help Lin Shinton join up her terminated meridians. Now with something related to Lin Shinton's body, Yi-Yun could not help but ask, Elder, this junior has heard of a constitution known as naturaline meridians. People with this condition cannot live past 400 years, and they would reach a limit when they cultivate to a high level, but after hearing what the elder said, that senior with a pure yang body managed to become a sage. I wonder if it is possible for a pure yang body to neutralize naturaline meridians? Is there a relationship between the two? Chapter 255, Totem Mystic Technique. Oh. You know about naturaline meridians as well? Song Yan stroked his chin. Naturaline meridians counter natural yang meridians, while a pure yin body counters a pure yang body. Is that so? Upon hearing this, Yi-Yun felt some regret. Previously, Song Yan had mentioned that an elder senior with a pure yang body had managed to master the Taya sacred technique in 20 days and he eventually became a sage. Yi-Yun had original thought that if Lin Shinton's naturaline meridians could counter the pure yang body, then Lin Shinton would have a chance to be a sage. Now, it appears that he thought too simply. Yi-Yun asked, what is a pure yin body? And what are naturaline meridians? Jiangu took over and stroked his beard and said, people with naturaline meridians definitely have pure yin bodies, but people with pure yin bodies do not necessarily have naturaline meridians. Pure yin bodies can only occur on women. Their bodies can perfectly synthesize with heaven earth yuan qi, and they are usually rare cultivation geniuses. Pure yin bodies also have different grades. The purer the body is, the higher the cultivation talent. The extreme state of pure yin bodies is having naturaline meridians. As the saying goes, things always reverse themselves after reaching an extreme. People with naturaline meridians would encounter all sorts of limitations on the path of cultivation. As you said, the girl will not have a lifespan exceeding 400 years. They would reach a bottleneck once they reach a certain cultivation realm. Such girls with pure yin bodies are very rare. Some people say they have so much talent that they cause the heavens to be jealous. As such, they have short lifespans and their path of cultivation is cut short by heaven's law. Heaven's laws cutting short the path of cultivation? Yi-Yun was stunned. Just for those words, he could imagine the difficulty needed to join up naturaline meridians. Does the senior know of any ways to join up such terminated meridians? Hearing Yi-Yun's question, Jiangu shook his head. Difficult. Too difficult. It is a heaven-defying feat since the path of cultivation is cut short by heaven's laws. To join them up using a mortal's power, it is too difficult. However, there have been legends that once these terminated Yin meridians are connected, the girl would become a cultivation genius, one not seen in millions of years. She will skyrocket and become a great empress. And it seems that in ancient times, there was such a legendary great empress. She had natural Yin meridians, but by using some unknown method, she had joined up her own terminated meridians. Upon mentioning ancient great emperors, Jiangu felt emotional. There has not been a single great emperor ever since the establishment of the Tai divine kingdom. Ancient great empress? Yi Yun had a thought in his mind. Since there were people who managed to defy heaven, it proved that this was not an impossible path. Since he had the purple crystal, he was different from others. He should have the means to do it. As Yi Yun was thinking through it, he noticed Song Yan's eyes flashing some sinister thoughts as he stared at Yi Yun. It was as if he was seeing something. What is this senior looking at? Yi Yun touched his face awkwardly. Kid, you are asking in so much detail. Do you actually know a girl with natural Yin meridians? Yi Yun paused without knowing how to respond. Song Yan began smiling lewdly and he lowered his voice. Girls with purine bodies are stunning beauties, they are the best of the best in the world. And for the extreme state of purine bodies, natural Yin meridians, are even more so. This girl's body is so pure that it is like a melting iceberg. Once Song Yan said this, Jiangu began coughing, as if he wanted to stop Song Yan from continuing. But Song Yan turned a deaf ear and carried on saying with his mysterious tone, Kid, have you heard of Yin and Yang complementary? It is using Yin to balance Yang, and using Yang to balance Yin. The greater the difference between the man and woman's body, the better and clearer the effects. A girl with purine body is the best partner to do such complementary intercourse, even more so for a man with pure Yang body. Besides, this kind of thing is also very beneficial for the girl. Ahem. Jiangu began to cough vigorously. He was speechless. How old was Yi Yun? To think this dirty old man was telling a 13-year-old child such things. But Song Yan became even more excited and treated Jiangu as I say, kid. You have so much talent in cultivating the Taiya sacred technique. In the future, your body will be full of yang qi. So, although you do not have a pure yang body, if you were to master the 9th level of the Taiya sacred technique, you will definitely be stronger than any typical pure yang body, but being pure yang to the extreme might not necessarily be good. You will still need a hint of pure yin qi to attune yourself, which pushes you to the highest levels. Old man Song began to chuckle with a you-know-it expression. Yi Yun's mouth turned agape. He did not know whether to nod or shake his head at that moment. Old man Song, what sort of nonsense are you telling him? Jiangu said grumpily. Old man Jian, I wasn't speaking nonsense. Everything I said was reasonable. Tell me, what did I say that was nonsense? Song Yan rebutted with a question in a serious manner, which caused Jiangu to choke. He had to admit that although Song Yan's words did not sound right, it was nothing but the truth. Besides, Song Yan patted Yi Yun on the shoulder and pulled Yi Yun over with his back facing Jiangu, then he whispered, actually, I suspect that this yin and yang complementary intercourse might be able to help a girl with natural yin meridians to join up her terminated meridians. Ah? There's such a thing? Yi Yun thought about it. Could that be true? I'm guessing. But who can say that it can't be so? Yin and yang complements. That is a truth that never changes. I can't guarantee if it will join up terminated meridians, but there will definitely be some benefits. At least it will extend the girl's lifespan. Speaking of this, do you actually know a girl with natural yin meridians? Old man Song was very concerned about this. When Yi Yun's pure yang was perfected, he needed a trace of pure yin qi, which would be an absolute fortuitous event for Yi Yun. Yi Yun laughed dryly twice. He did not admit nor deny it. If Yi Yun admitted it and began discussing Lin Xintong's conscience with this wretched old man, he would find it odd. It felt like an obscene act of coveting a goddess behind her back. Regardless, Sun Yan's words gave Yi Yun a method to join up Lin Xintong's terminated meridians. Ignoring the act of intercourse, as long as he found treasures that contained pure yang qi to nourish Lin Xintong's body, it would be very beneficial for her. With Yi Yun's purple crystal, it was not hard for him to find pure yang treasures. That, Senior, I have another question about the mystic techniques of totems. In a few days, I plan to go into the divine wilderness to hunt desolate beasts. I want to try condensing an aspect totem. Yi Yun changed the topic. To condense an aspect totem, it could not be done out of thin air, he needed a mystic technique. The totem mystic technique was the same as a cultivation technique. It was a very important technique for warriors. Oh? You want to try condensing an aspect before Yuan? Old man San's eyes lit up. Those who could condense an aspect before Yuan were fantastic people. These people were still very rare for a place like the Taiya Divine City, which gathered all sorts of geniuses. Not only did they need perceptivity, they also needed talent. Different warriors had different affinities with the power of desolates. Although some people had outstanding talent, they were bad at absorbing a desolate beast's power of desolates. Such a person might find it very difficult to condense an aspect totem even after reaching the Yuan Foundation, let alone aspect before Yuan. I'll try it, Yi Yun said with a smile. If I really can't do it, I'll just wait till I break through to the Yuan Foundation realm. You kid! You have mastered the Taiya sacred technique and you have also gained insight on the Saber Truth's 32 words. You even want to try the aspect before Yuan. Anything good is yours. San Yan cursed in a friendly manner. Don't get your hopes too high though. It is alright if you can't condense it. There are not many people who can do it. The results you have obtained is already amazing. San Yan said as he threw a jade scroll at Yi Yun. The totem mystic techniques are in there. You can choose it. Of course, I'll charge you as per normal for. A good totem mystic technique is not cheap. The Taiya Divine City had its own rules. The allocation of resources were strictly adhered to the rules. Yi Yun caught the jade scroll with joy. The beginning of the jade scroll introduced the different grades of aspect totems. Aspect totems had a dazzling variety. Different warriors could condense different kinds of aspect totems according to their body's characteristics and the cultivation techniques they learned. For example, the aspect totem Chu Xiaorand condensed was in the shape of a desolate beast. Some people would condense aspect totem forms like plants, weapons, star constellations, or even mountains and rivers. The stronger an aspect totem was, the harder it was to condense. Once formed, it would be great in scale, to the point of causing an unnatural phenomenon. Of course, it was very difficult to reach this stage. Chapter 256, The Ninth Terrace in the Library. After seeing the Jade Scroll's introduction, Yi Yun could not help but feel some anticipation. An aspect totem not only increased a warrior's yuan qi, it could also be used for attacking enemies. For example, a swordsman's aspect totem would also be in the shape of a sword. When he conjured his aspect totem, he could kill an opponent that was 300 meters away in a split second. Many swordsmen wished their aspect totem was in the shape of a sword. To them, that was the best kind of aspect totem. Unfortunately, not every swordsman could condense an aspect totem in the shape of a sword. I wonder what my aspect totem will look like when I condense it. Yi Yun was looking forward to the moment he condensed his aspect totem. He browsed through the totem mystic techniques within the Jade Scroll. Divine Martial Aspect, Exchange Price, 50,000 Dragon Scale Runes. To master Divine Martial Aspect, strength-based desolate beasts have to be hunted, for example, Strength Omega Ape, Heavenly Armored Rhinoceros, Thousand Mountain Bear. To master the Divine Martial Aspect, the requirements on a warrior's blood and chi foundation are extremely high. It requires them to be thick and strong. Only people with strong bodies can endure the power of desolates surging through their bodies. Once the Divine Martial Aspect is mastered, they can condense a beast-like aspect totem. With the aspect totem, the body's strength will increase several times, to the point of being able to lift a mountain. After Yi Yun saw the first introduction to the totem mystic technique, he immediately felt that this was a mystic technique most suitable for Chunyo. Once Chunyo condensed an aspect totem similar to the Thousand Mountain Bear, he could become a humanoid primordial desolate beast. That could only be described by the word violence. But this did not suit Yi Yun. It was too restrictive to just battle using strength. Yi Yun carried on looking through it. Heavenly Fire Secret, priced at 60,000 dragon scale runes. This was a technique that condensed a fire elemental aspect totem by hunting fire elemental desolate beasts. It was most suitable for warriors with extreme affinity with fire elemental Yuan Qi. Mist Venom Secret Tome, priced 35,000 dragon scale runes. It was a mystic technique that cultivated venomous worms. By hunting highly toxic desolate beasts and gathering their toxins, one could condense a toxic aspect totem. Once it was conjured, it would spread a toxic mist, reducing all living things in a 5-kilometer radius to bone. Yi Yun searched through the catalog. He realized that a large number of totem mystic techniques focused on a specific element, for example, ice, fire, earth, or pure strength or speed. But Yi Yun found that none of these suited him. Many warriors had a natural affinity to a particular elemental law. For example, Zhu Xiaoran was naturally able to control frost ice Yuan Qi, so the aspect totem she conjured was naturally that of ice. But Yi Yun was not good at controlling any type of Yuan Qi. Rather, with the purple crystal, Yi Yun did not have any energy that he was not good at controlling. Whether it was Heaven Earth Yuan Qi or Power of Desolates, as long as it was a form of energy, he was good at controlling it. What sort of totem mystic technique was most suitable for him? Yi Yun flipped through the catalog again and again, and after looking through all the mystic techniques in the Jade Scroll, he still could not find a suitable one for himself. Oh? None of them are suitable? Seeing Yi Yun frown, Song Yan also frowned. The totem mystic techniques contained in that Jade Scroll of his were mystic techniques most suitable for warriors in the early stages of the Yuan Foundation realm. They were high in quality, but they weren't too difficult to learn. It was most suitable for Yi Yun if he wanted to condense an aspect before Yuan. But it was clear that Yi Yun was not satisfied. What are you not satisfied with? Song Yan asked. These mystic techniques are not bad, but they are kind of limited, Yi Yun said in a roundabout and tactful manner. But it was clear that he meant that the mystic techniques were too narrow in scope. Yi Yun felt it was not suitable for himself to condense just any ordinary aspect totem that focused on a single law's power. For a powerful dragon that could swim the seas and summon the storms, it could not do anything in a shallow bay. And the purple crystal was a powerful dragon. Jiangu and Sun Yin thought for a while before understanding the situation. In other words, none of the mystic techniques had caught Yi Yun's eye. This damned fellow. Others would be full of trepidation about being able to form an aspect before Yuan. They would just attempt, without much hope of condensing one. Once they condensed one, it was a delightful surprise. In fact, it was normal to not be able to condense one. But Yi Yun was acting like he had already condensed the aspect before Yuan, and he was very picky over the mystic techniques not because he was afraid he could not master them, but because they did not catch his eye. Jiangu and Song Yan looked at each other speechlessly. This kid was too overbearing. Kid, the totem mystic techniques catalogued within the Tai Divine City are accumulated over millions of years from all parts of the Tai Divine Kingdom. Every type is included, and the quality is high, yet none of them caught your eye? Seeing Yi Yun so picky, Jiangu could not help but say. In fact, Jiangu wanted to say, you aren't even in the Yuan Foundation realm, and the condensation of the aspect before Yuan is still not set in stone, why are you so picky? Aspect before Yuan was not easy to condense. Even if your perceptivity was high, it was in vain if your affinity with Power of Desolates was poor. Yi Yun, do not bite off more than you can chew. Back then, Qin Haotian was not able to condense an aspect before Yuan. Neither did I back in the day. The difficulties of aspect before Yuan differs from person to person. It does not mean that you can condense an aspect before Yuan even with excellent talent. You are currently still in the middle stages of purple blood. Do it in a down-to-earth manner. Don't look down on all these totem mystic techniques. These mystic techniques are all amazing in their own right. If you can master any of these by forming the aspect before Yuan, it will be unbelievable. Once you reach the Yuan foundation realm, you can let your aspect totem evolve. As your cultivation level rises over time, your aspect totem will also become stronger. It will exceed warriors at the same level as you. If you become a sage, your aspect totem would be even stronger than mine. Once you reach a higher level, you can absolutely cultivate an ever better totem mystic technique. But that should not happen now. Currently, you are just in the beginning stages. It is best to choose something that you can master easily. In fact, the totem mystic techniques San Yan gave you are all excellent ones. You can tell just from the price. Every one of them average around 50,000 dragon scale runes. They are definitely not simple. Jian Ge seldom spoke much, but all of a sudden, he began saying so much to Yi Yun because he thought highly of him. Yi Yun did not know what to do upon hearing this. He knew that Jian Ge was being considerate, which made him unsure how to reject his advice. That, Senior Jian Ge, this junior only feels he should try a higher quality totem mystic technique. It's just an attempt. There's nothing to lose, and what if I mastered it? Yi Yun bit the bullet and said it despite Jian Ge's concern. It was also troublesome to be given too much concern by someone powerful. Song Yan gave Yi Yun an odd look. What do you mean by nothing to lose? Kid, do you know how much it costs for a high-grade mystic technique? Many mystic techniques are not prepared for young people like you. They were prepared for human lords, and some of the mystic techniques are even something Jian Ge and I have to ponder over occasionally. Also, to master a totem mystic technique, you will need to spend a large amount of time and energy to hunt desolate beasts. One needs to absorb the power of desolates to experiment if you can master it. You think nothing is at stake? Who knows, you might actually have the ability to condense an aspect before Yuan. But due to choosing a mystic technique that is too difficult, you end up not being able to form an aspect before Yuan. It will be your loss if you form an aspect totem only after you break through to the Yuan foundation realm. San Yan explained his reasoning clearly. For a person like San Yan, it was rare for him to educate the younger generation in such a stern manner. Yi Yun nodded when he heard this and he looked as if he was thinking deeply over it. This senior has a point, and this junior understands. Song Yan stroked his beard in a satisfied manner when Yi Yun said that. Just as he was to say some additional words to dispel Yi Yun off his unrealistic intentions, making Yi Yun condense an aspect before Yuan in a down-to-earth fashion, he suddenly heard Yi Yun say softly, "But as I was saying, what if I mastered it?" Song Yan blew at his beard and stared. The words he had prepared to say were left stuck in his throat. After staring at Yi Yun for a long while, he asked seriously, "Are you sure you want to try?" "If it's possible." Yi Yun said it without much confidence, but Song Yan knew that Yi Yun was determined to give it a try. The only reason why Yi Yun's words were lacking in confidence was because he did not want to openly go against his and Jian Ge's wishes. "Since you are so determined, then, all right." Song Yan shook his head. "Then follow me to the library to choose a mystic technique." Yi Yun had come to the Tai A Divine City's library once before. They were building after buildings of black stone terraces. They had a simple exterior. The further forward one went, the more valuable the books were. To enter the 6th or 7th terrace of the library, there was a one-time cost of a few thousand or even more than 10,000 dragon scale runes. If he wanted to borrow the books, he even needed to use glory points. Typical cultivators seldom went beyond the 7th terrace. This was because the books within it were too expensive. They were usually prepared for mighty figures of the human race. Song Yen brought Yi Yun directly to the 9th terrace of the library. This was the last terrace. This terrace had a big array guarding it, so no cultivator could enter it. Upon stepping into the terrace, Yi Yun felt a powerful aura that made his breathing slow. Such a strong aura. Just the books gathered here can form an invisible pressure that makes me difficult to breathe. Song Yen had already expected Yi Yun's response and looked at Yi Yun with a smug glance. His expression said, "Kid, didn't you want to learn the highest grade of totem mystic techniques? So I brought you here to let you know what kind of state the highest grade of totem mystic techniques are like." Ignoring the possibility of mastering the mystic technique, just the aura can scare you to death. Elder. At the entrance of the terrace, a few administrators in black saluted Song Yen upon seeing him. Seeing these black-clad administrators, Yi Yun's eyebrows jumped. After he formed the Heaven's Eyeball, although he could not tell the level of these men in black, he could roughly gauge their powers. These people were extremely strong. They should be on the level of the law enforcers. With a group of law enforcers guarding the terrace, together with the protective array within it, this terrace was definitely an important spot in the Tai A Divine City. If not for Song Yen, Yi Yun had no right to enter. Song Yen nodded, and motioned for the administrators in black to retreat. He took Yi Yun directly to the top of the terrace. Chapter 257, 10,000 Beast Totem. Here it is. Go ahead and choose. The 9th terrace of the library had 7 floors, and at the highest floor, there were only 7 shelves. Each shelf had a few books or jade scrolls on them. There were also protective barrier arrays on all of the shelves. Yi Yun casually browsed through the shelves, but some of the jade scrolls he saw shocked him. The jade scrolls were dark blood red in color. The surface of each jade scroll was inscribed with ancient text, and they seemed to possess a long history. The label below the jade scrolls read, Tai A Sacred Technique 7th to 9th Volume. The last 3 volumes of the Tai A Sacred Technique. Yi Yun held his breath. Up to now, he had only exchanged dragon scales for the first 3 volumes of the Tai A Sacred Technique, and they were the cheapest of all the volumes. The prices of the subsequent volumes grew at an exponential rate. It was not known how many glory points were needed to exchange for the entire 9 volumes of the Tai A Sacred Technique. The last 3 volumes of the Tai A Sacred Technique are stored here. It means the totem mystic techniques kept in this place are on the same level as the Tai A Sacred Technique. Yi Yun looked over and saw the shelf that displayed the totem mystic techniques. There were 3 jade scrolls and a black book on the shelf. Amongst the 3 jade scrolls, 2 of them were 2-part volumes of the same mystic technique. The 3rd jade scroll was an independent mystic technique. And the black book was another mystic technique. In other words, there were only 3 totem mystic techniques on the shelf. Each one of them was priceless. These mystic techniques, due to a barrier array, Yi Yun could not pick them up and read them, but he could read the introductions of the mystic techniques. The 5 Elements Divine Totem was found in ruins left behind by a great emperor, and it was uncovered in the Divine Wilderness by the Tai A Divine Kingdom's Divine Emperor Tianfeng. To master the 5 Elements Divine Totem, one needs to master the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, earth. After understanding the laws of the 5 elements, one has to combine them together as one to complete the technique. Yi Yun read the introduction to the 5 Elements Divine Totem. Just from the introduction, it made many people flinch. Just to master one mystic technique, one had to be able to control the power of the 5 elements and understand the laws of all 5 elements. It was pretty remarkable for an average person to master one law. For example, Chu Xiaoran had great affinity with frost ice laws and was an incredible elite. But to master the 5 Elements Divine Totem, one had to have an affinity with all 5 elemental laws. Furthermore, one had to combine the 5 elemental laws into one. This combination process was definitely difficult. It was probably even harder than mastering each element separately. Did Divine Emperor Tianfeng learn the 5 elements divine totem? Yi Yun had previously heard of Divine Emperor Tianfeng. He was an emperor who desired absolute power and control. Not only was he the Tai A Divine Kingdom's divine emperor, he had also taken on the position of the Tai A Divine City's city lord. This was something rare in the Tai A Divine Kingdom's history. Divine Emperor Tianfeng had unfathomable strength, or he would not have been able to enter a forgotten ruin of a great emperor. That was a place where even sages could die. He, Song Yan, smiled insidiously. No, he didn't. Even if you have amazing perceptivity, you might not be able to understand the 5 elemental laws. There might just be one elemental law that you are unable to grasp. Divine Emperor Tianfeng used an extremely long period to master each of the 5 elements. He killed numerous elemental primordial species, but in the end, although he managed to master the 5 elements, he was unable to combine them. Hence, he never managed to master the 5 elements divine totem. Song Yan said this while looking at Yi Yun with a fascinating smile. His expression seemed to say, "How about it, are you dazzled? Do you want to learn something that even Divine Emperor Tianfeng could not master? If this still can't scare you to death, I want to see how much more you can fool around." Yi Yun quietly returned the Mystic Technique's introduction back and picked the second Mystic Technique's introduction. Book of the Stars. By interfacing with the power of the stars, one can merge it with the power of desolates from slain desolate beasts to form a Star Ancient Book. This Star Ancient Book is this Mystic Technique's aspect totem. Once the Ancient Book is opened, it will reflect the constellations, and by borrowing the power of the stars, it will form a heaven-earth array. It will be the best offensive and defensive combination, resulting in invincibility. After the 5 elements divine totem, it was this Book of the Stars. Just from the description, one could feel the powerfulness of it. Has anyone mastered the Book of the Stars? Yi Yun asked. The Book of the Stars just requires one to interface with the power of the stars. Although it's very difficult, it is not like the 5 elements divine totem. It doesn't require one to master the metal, wood, water, fire, earth elemental laws. Historically, there was a sage in the Tai A Divine Kingdom who managed to master the Star Ancient Book totem. Once the Ancient Book was opened, it could also reflect the constellations, but as for setting up a heaven-earth array using the stars, no one has been able to do it. How about it, the Book of the Stars is even more ridiculous than the 5 elements divine totem. Do you still want to attempt learning it? Song Yan said with a teasing tone, intentionally making fun of Yi Yun. Yi Yun did not reply and he carried on looking at the 3rd totem Mystic Technique. This totem Mystic Technique was very special. It was not a jade scroll, but it was in the form of a black ancient book. The book was very thin, and it looked like it only had a few pages. The ancient book's introduction was not detailed. Nameless Black Book, an ancient remnant. It only has the first 12 pages. Divine Emperor Tianfeng named it the 10,000 Beast Totem. To master the 10,000 Beast Totem, one has to kill 10,000 primordial species, and use their power of desolates to condense an aspect totem. Yi Yun took a deep breath when he saw this. Kill 10,000 primordial species. This is way too ridiculous. Reading on, there were no other special elemental laws required listed in the introduction for this nameless black book. There was no restriction on the elemental properties of the 10,000 primordial species that had to be killed. As the elemental laws came in all sorts of forms, the aspect totem that was mastered would have no specific form. Its power and laws differed from person to person and had endless possibilities. This 10,000 Beast Totem, no one has mastered it, right? Yi Yun turned his head to ask Song Yan. Song Yan rolled his eyes at Yi Yun. Isn't that obvious? It is a remnant and one has to kill 10,000 primordial species. It is totally insane. Who can master it? But it's not that no one has mastered it, there was one person who tried it. He did not kill primordial species, but killed desolate beasts that were one rank lower. Following the introduction of the 10,000 beast totem, the person managed to barely condense the aspect totem. However, its strength was just 1% of what was described in the book. It is not only because of the lower-ranked desolate beasts, the main reason is because the energy control described in the 10,000 beast totem is too esoteric. To circulate the power of desolates, according to the instructions in the 10,000 beast totem, is too difficult. Even sages struggle to understand it. I say, kid, have you finished choosing? Song Yin pressed, looking at Yi Yun with an amused expression. You rejected the totem mystic techniques I carefully picked for you, and you had to come here to suffer abuse. Now are you satisfied? These ridiculous totem mystic techniques here are not meant for people to learn. I'll see how you are going to choose. Yi Yun stood before the shelf and stayed silent. He fell into deep thought. Which of the 3 mystic techniques should he choose? Song Yin was standing by the side watching with a snigger. He knew that Yi Yun was in an unresolvable position. Only after coming here did he realize that every technique was an impossible undertaking. He had already anticipated that Yi Yun would shrink back at the sight of these, eventually giving up the opportunity to choose any of the 3 totem mystic technique. But at this point, Song Yin did not mind leaving Yi Yun hanging. He wanted to teach Yi Yun a lesson that he should not reach beyond his grasp. 13-year-old youths tended to be ambitious and self-inflated. They thought that they were the only special person under the heavens. It was beneficial for his growth to give him a setback at this moment. Kid, have you thought it through? Thinking that it was about time, Song Yin decided to let Yi Yun have a chance to resolve his awkward position. He believed the lesson he gave to Yi Yun was sufficient up to this point. I have thought it through. After Yi Yun gave a bit more thought, he answered. All right, that's more like it. Song Yin gave a satisfactory nod. He had an expression of the boy is worth teaching, an old man's sayings are seldom untrue, the distance I walked on bridges is more than 100 times than the distance you walked. How could heeding my advice be wrong? It's alright to make mistakes in your youth, the problem is to not realize your mistake. It is a great virtue to correct what you have done wrong. Song Yin patted Yi Yun on the shoulder, and just as he was about to say a few more words, Yi Yun's words pushed the words Song Yin wanted to say back into his throat. Senior Song Yin, this junior understands. This junior shall choose the 3rd mystic technique, 10,000 beast totem. Yi Yun made up his decision after careful thought. Song Yin stared at Yi Yun as if he was a rooster whose neck was strangled right before it could crow. He widened his eyes and looked disbelievingly at Yi Yun. At this moment, Yi Yun still gave a pensive look. He had immediately eliminated the first one among the 3 mystic techniques. The 5 elemental laws were not goals Yi Yun pursued. As for the 2nd and 3rd mystic techniques, they had their own advantages. The 2nd mystic technique cultivated the power of the stars. Yi Yun recalled that just after entering this world, the purple crystal had absorbed the power of the stars at night in the cloud wilderness. The faint dreamlike lights were still something fresh in Yi Yun's mind. It was because of them did he slowly realize the abilities of the purple crystal. It was easy to guess that it would be easy to master the Book of the Stars using the purple crystal. But, the Book of the Stars had its limitations. Just the power of the stars meant that it was only a single law. Besides, the power of the stars and the power of pure yang had a big difference. It was not well suited to the Taiya sacred technique he used. Hence, Yi Yun had decided to choose the 3rd mystic technique. It was one that had endless possibilities and infinite variations. The 10,000 beast totem was neither limited by laws, nor was it limited to elemental energy properties. Unfortunately, the 10,000 beast totem was a remnant. This meant that he would be faced with numerous difficulties as he progressed further with the 10,000 beast totem. Once he reached that point, he had to find the other pieces of the 10,000 beast totem. But it was almost impossible to find such a nameless ancient book. If it's absolutely impossible, I'll use the purple crystal's energies to circulate. I might then be able to make up for some of its deficiencies. Or I might look for and then cultivate other similar totem mystic techniques. As Yi Yun was speaking to himself, he turned towards Song Yan and saw Song Yan's mouth agape. His expression was lifeless, staring at Yi Yun with widened eyes. He looked like a dead fish, one that had been choked to death. Chapter 258, Unrestrained. You want to choose the 10,000 beast totem? Song Yan took a while before asking Yi Yun a question. He could not believe what he was hearing. Was there a gaping hole in this kid's brain? All of the three mystic techniques were extremely difficult to learn. And the third mystic technique was the most difficult amongst the three. Whether it was the killing of 10,000 primordial species or the comprehension of the profound energy circulation trajectories, it was extremely hopeless. Furthermore, it was a remnant. Only fools or crazy people would choose such a mystic technique. Yi Yun nodded and said, Senior Song Yan, I'll choose this. Since the mystic technique is incomplete, it should be very cheap, right? While saying this, Yi Yun looked at Song Yan with anticipation. He hoped Song Yan would give him a concession. Cheap? When Song Yan heard Yi Yun's words, he fumed. Cheap my ass. If you want this mystic technique, it costs 2 glory points per page. Song Yan was speechless. After all that he said, Yi Yun still ignored every word of his. Yi Yun grimaced. 2 glory points per page meant that the 12 pages would cost 24 glory points in total. It was too expensive. Senior, this mystic technique is just placed here and there's so many pages missing. With no one mastering it, nobody reads it too, right? Yi Yun asked timidly. Song Yan stared and said, Who says no one reads it? Sages would often come here to try and understand the 10,000 beast totem. The 10,000 beast totem has those 12 pages only and there is only one copy. Although it cannot be mastered, it still gives sages some inspiration of the laws. Alright. Yi Yun could only accept it. He had originally earned 3 glory points from picking the primordial herb, 2 more glory points from breaking the herb picking record and 1 more from being ranked first in the rookie ranking competition. With a total of 6 glory points, he had spent 2 to purchase the Taya Sacred technique. The remaining 4 glory points could only be used to rent 2 pages of the 10,000 beast totem. By spending all his glory points in a split moment, Yi Yun felt as if he had gone bankrupt overnight. It was very hard to get glory points. As for dragon scale runes, Yi Yun still had plenty left. Before Yi Yun had participated in the rookie ranking competition, he had 50,000 dragon scale runes. After the gambling battles with the Hongdao Association members, Yi Yun's dragon scale runes total had reached 100,000. Yi Yun had also earned a large amount from the Hongdao Association's betting pool. After tax, he had earned 30,000. Adding to that, in the final match Li Hong had given him another 50,000 dragon scale runes and Yi Yun had earned dragon scale runes from the reward for being first amongst the rookies. Adding it all up, Yi Yun had a total of 220,000 dragon scale runes. Yi Yun was extremely rich. Yi Yun could spend his dragon scale runes anywhere that needed dragon scale runes without any worries. It's time to consider changing my residence. Yi Yun had been staying in the free dormitories and was lazy to move. This time, he could immediately move to the central divine tower. Kid, you will regret it in time. As Yi Yun was leaving the library, Song Yan's angry voice came from behind. Yi Yun did not know what to say. He looked at Song Yan, who was blowing his beard and staring with widened eyes. He suddenly felt sorry for the old man. It seemed like he had been cheating him all the time. Cultivating the 10,000 beast totem requires me killing a large number of primordial species. I definitely do not have that ability. I might as well go to the Wilderness Divine Hall and try to see if the Wilderness Divine Hall's primordial species energy is any help in mastering the 10,000 beast totem. Yi Yun was not confident with this idea. To condense an aspect totem, he needed to absorb desolate beasts that he killed himself. The soul imprint within a desolate beast would dissipate if it was killed by someone else, especially one killed millions of years ago. As such, it would be very difficult to condense it. Regardless, Iyun decided to give it a try. It could still be beneficial for him to use the energy within the Wilderness Divine Hall to familiarize himself with the cultivation methods of the 10,000 Beast Totem. With this thought in mind, Iyun headed towards the Central Divine Tower. He planned to first settle the Central Divine Tower move-in procedures. Before heading to the Wilderness Divine Hall to cultivate the 10,000 Beast Totem. Due to the Wilderness Divine Hall's expensive entrance fee, even rich cultivators would not choose the Wilderness Divine Hall as a place to cultivate their cultivation techniques. After all, it was common for a person to spend 3 to 4 days in cultivation at a time. If it was all done in the Wilderness Divine Hall, it would cost 40,000 to 50,000 dragon scale runes. But Iyun could do anything according to his wishes with 220,000 dragon scale runes in hand. Anything that could aid him in cultivating the 10,000 Beast Totem was nothing, even if it was to deplete him of all his wealth. Before Iyun proceeded far, a voice called out, stopping him. "Are you Iyun?" Iyun turned over and saw 2 17 to 18-year-old youths standing behind him. "You are?" Iyun did not know the two. "Young Master Yang invites you to the Divine Moon restaurant," said one of the youths. Although the youth had a deadpan expression, the tone he used in his words sounded unpleasant. "Young Master?" Iyun frowned. Cultivators who came to the Tai A Divine City usually could not bring followers. The two youths did not look like followers, but they looked like cultivators. Surnamed Yang, could it be the Chu royal residence's Yang Dingkuan? With some thought, the only person surnamed Yang that had any interaction with him recently was Yang Dingkuan. "No. You'll know when you go. Let's go to the Divine Moon restaurant," the youth said again. Iyun laughed. "What if I don't go? If any Tom, Dick or Harry were to invite him, could he ever be free?" Seeing the ages of the two youths in front of him, they were likely cultivators who had spent a long time in the Tai A Divine City and they would soon leave the Tai A Divine City. But Iyun felt that they were not that strong. They might have broken through to the Yuan Foundation realm. But even if they had broken through, they did not have a strong foundation. In terms of strength, they were probably no match for Li Hong. The youth did not expect Iyun's reaction and immediately frowned. He patiently explained, "The Chu royal residence invites you." "As I guessed, it's the Chu royal residence." Iyun had guessed it earlier on. "That's right," the youth said proudly. He obviously felt that Iyun would not stay arrogant once the words Chu royal residence were said. This was what many would normally think. Iyun may be strong, but no matter how strong he was still a junior. Compared to a large entity like the Chu royal residence, he was nothing. The Chu royal residence was filled with experts, so who would dare to offend them? Iyun smiled. "The two of you must have joined the Chu royal residence midway?" Iyun came to a realization that the Chu royal residence absorbed all sorts of talent within the Tai A Divine City by getting them to sign contracts. Their main goal was to attract outstanding talent, but they did not mind pulling in people with average strength to fill the numbers. After all, those who could enter the Tai A Divine City were the best amongst their peers. This was also the reason why the two youths called a descendant of the Chu royal residence, young Master Yang. The two youths nodded instinctively. Just as they were about to carry on speaking, Iyun turned around and left after saying, "Not interested." The two youths were dumbfounded. "Iyun, you." They did not expect Iyun to be so arrogant. They had joined the Chu royal residence a few years ago. The name, Chu royal residence, was always useful in the Tai A Divine City. Many young geniuses would not dare to offend the Chu royal residence no matter how strong they were. But Iyun, who was a first-year rookie, completely looked down on the Chu royal residence. The young master of the Chu royal residence had personally invited Iyun to the Divine Moon restaurant. It was the most expensive place to eat in the Tai A Divine City. they served all sorts of priceless food. If one was rich enough, one could even eat the meat of a primordial species. Seeing Yun walk further into the distance, the two youths looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Yun did not take this matter to heart. It was quite easy to guess the reason why the Chu royal residence was looking for him under the current circumstances. Yang had a request beseech him, yet he had sent 2 errand boys over. He sure had an air of importance. Yun went straight to the administrative office of the Central Divine Tower to obtain a permanent room. He chose a room at the 69th level of the Central Divine Tower. This was pretty much the best room cultivators could stay in. The Central Divine Tower was a large array that gathered Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi. The higher it was, the thicker the Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi. The purity and concentration of the Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi on the 69th floor satisfied Yun greatly. It was half the work with double the results when cultivating here. Yun was led by a young voluptuous girl who was wearing a tight black dress to look at the room. The size of the room was not too exaggerated. It was about 100 square meters. However, the facilities within it were expensive and extremely exquisite. There were 3 arrays used for cultivating. Each one of them had different functions, and they each needed 1 desolate beast relic to power them. As for the bedding and the carpet, they were made from king-rank desolate beast skin. They were given additional processing by masters such as embroidering array inscriptions within them. Sleeping on them nourished the body, and it would subtly strengthen one's foundation. Outside the room, there were all sorts of facilities that aided one's training. It was very luxurious. "How is it?" the black-clad beauty asked with a giggle. Her voice was extremely sweet, like a wind chime. She was an attendant of the Central Divine Tower that was in charge of hospitality and service. The Central Divine Tower Residences was the only residence in the Tai A Divine City that had service personnel. It costs 20,000 dragon scale runes a month to stay here. The black-clad girl already knew Yun's identity, but she was very curious about this young man. Even the cultivators in the top 10 of the Heaven and Earth roles might not be able to afford living here. And it had not even been 4 months since Yun came to the Tai A Divine City. Yes, not bad. Yun was very satisfied. Yun was not stingy with anything that could increase his cultivation speed. "I shall rent this room for half a year," Yun said without much ado, and passed his identity token to the black-clad beauty. There were 220,000 dragon scale runes stored within the identity token. The black-clad beauty's eyelid twitched. For half a year, that was 120,000 dragon scale runes. In the entire Tai A Divine City, there was no other cultivator that could spend dragon scale runes in such a manner except this youth in front of her. It was impossible and completely ridiculous to find another. After all, the black-clad girl earned a salary as an employee of the Tai A Divine City. And that salary was also paid in dragon scale runes. Employees also needed to cultivate. They could not give up on their martial arts just for their jobs in the Tai A Divine City. Hence, they would also need to use dragon scale runes to exchange for resources. As a low-ranking employee, the black-clad girl's monthly salary was just 3,000 dragon scale runes. Compared to the youth in front of her, she was speechless. The youth had spent in a second what she earned in 3 years. "This is your key." The black-clad girl gave Yun a golden key. This was the Central Divine Tower's key, and the key was in the shape of a tetragonal pyramid. It was very exquisite. "Thanks." Yun took it and smiled at the black-clad girl to show his appreciation. Following that, Yun left the Central Divine Tower and went to the Wilderness Divine Hall. He bought 60 hours in one go, and that was another 30,000 dragon scale runes spent. In a day's work, Yun had spent 150,000 dragon scale runes. This gave Yun mixed emotions. It was easy to be unrestrained once one had a lot of money. Chapter 259, Chu Royal Residence's Negotiation. Since Yi Yun had decided to move into the central divine tower, Yi Yun went back to his free lodging to gather his things. All his belongings were thrown into his interspatial ring. After packing his things, Yi Yun went to the cookhouse next to the free lodgings for dinner. But some uninvited guests came while he was eating. A youth, who was fanning himself with a fan, walked over with a smile and sat opposite Yi Yun. The person closed his fan with a snap. Yi Yun looked up and glanced at him. Behind him were two attendants who were the ones who had invited him to the Divine Moon restaurant earlier. Other than that, there was someone familiar, Yang Dingkuan. Yang Dingkuan was following behind the youth with a fan. Without question, this fanning youth had a higher position than Yang Dingkuan in the Chu royal residence. This must be little brother Yi. I had reserved a special table with a feast worth 1,200 dragon scale runes at the Divine Moon restaurant, but little brother Yi did not do me the favor to show up and rather chose to eat in the cookhouse. I waited there for nothing for 2 hours. The youth with the fan said with a smile. Although his tone was polite, there was a hidden sharpness within it. Even Taya Divine City cultivators ranked in the top 100 of the Heaven and Earth roll would feel the pinch after eating 1,200 dragon scale runes worth of food. Yi Yun slowly wiped his mouth. He was speechless. Every time he had a meal, someone would come pick on him. Did these fools collude beforehand to do so? Let me introduce myself. I'm Yang Yefeng and from the Chu royal residence. I've been in the Taiya Divine City for 4 years, but have a shameful ranking of 100 or so on the Heaven and Earth rolls. The fanning youth said slowly with a lot of charisma. It was a very impressive deed to commoners if someone could reach the Heaven and Earth ranking of 100 within 4 years in the Taiya Divine City. But for a young leader of the Chu royal residence, it was not impressive. Even Yang Dingkuan, who was obviously lower in status than Yang Yefeng, was ranked in the top 100. Furthermore, Yang Dingkuan was even younger than Yang Yefeng. But Yi Yun was aware that even though Yang Yefeng's self-introduction might sound weak, it was a demonstration of his prowess. By pointing out his shortcomings, he was actually highlighting his strengths, or his status would not be above Yang Dingkuan's. Yi Yun remembered Yang Yefeng's name since he had memorized the Heaven, Earth, Man rolls of honor. Yang Yefeng was ranked 10th on the Man roll. By being ranked on the worst side of 100 on the Heaven and Earth roll, but ranked 10th on the Man roll clearly indicated that Yang Yefeng had some special skills. I see that it's young Master Yang. Is young Master Yang a desolate heaven master? Or an alchemist? Ha! I'm lacking in talent but have some mild research in the desolate heaven technique. Although Yang Yefeng said it humbly, he was clearly very proud of his desolate heaven technique. By being ranked 10th on the Man roll, it symbolized that his desolate heaven technique was near perfection. It was due to his desolate heaven technique that Yang Yefeng had achieved such a position among the younger generation within the Chu royal residence. In fact, in many cases, large families would appreciate desolate heaven masters more than pure combat warriors. Outside of the Taiya Divine City, in the Taiya Divine Kingdom, the currency most often used was desolate bone relics. Some special desolate bone relics could help a warrior make a breakthrough, condense an aspect totem or allow their aspect totem to evolve. There were many uses for desolate bone relics. So it's young Heaven Master. Yi Yun said lightly. Ha, I don't dare to be given the title Heaven Master. In the future, when little brother Yi condenses an aspect totem, maybe I will be able to assist you in some way. Yang Yefeng subtly expressed the level of his desolate heaven technique. Only high-grade desolate heaven masters could refine desolate bone relics that could help condense aspect totems. Little brother Yi's time is precious, so I'll go straight to the point. Yang Yefeng said before passing a jade scroll to Yi Yun. Little brother Yi, you can take a look. Yi Yun swept it with a glance. It was the terms the Chu royal residence used to pull him in again with a binding contract. The remuneration was none other than elixirs, fiefs, relics, beautiful **x cultivation slaves, etc. However, compared to the previous contract, the terms were multiple times better. Some of the beauties prepared for him were even from the Chu family's direct bloodline. By giving the Chu royal residence's descendants to elites, which the Chu royal residence wanted to pull in as concubines, not only did it satisfy the vanity and dominating personalities of elites, it could also make these elites have a closer relationship with the Chu royal residence. It killed two birds with one stone. This gave Yi Yun mixed emotions. Girls born from large family clans had a tragic fate if they did not have enough talent. The Chu royal residence had too many children. For the family clan's interests, they did not mind sacrificing their children who were of little value. In a large family clan, they had no freedom regarding their marriage. Seeing all these conditions that lacked anything new, Yi Yun lost interest. He noticed that besides those conditions, even the truth of the laws, which Yang Dingquan had lost to him, had been written into it as one of the conditions. Even a lost bet could be used as a condition? Yi Yun frowned slightly. He returned the jade scroll. Sorry, I'm not interested. It's regretful. Yang Dingquan shook his head. Then would little brothery please return the truth of the law's jade scroll to me? According to the Chu royal residence's rules, the truth of the laws can only be cultivated by a person from the Chu royal residence. If little brothery was willing to accept the conditions on the jade scroll and join the Chu royal residence, then the truth of the laws can be freely cultivated by little brothery. But if you do not agree to that, then please return the jade scroll. According to the Chu royal residence's rules, Dingquan had no right to use the truth of the laws as a bet. Hence, the bet does not count. For this, the Chu royal residence has severely punished Dingquan, lowering his position in the family clan by 3 grades. I have been ordered to remedy the situation. Actually, if little brothery were to sign the contract and join the Chu royal residence, it will be a joyous occasion. But since little brothery doesn't wish so, this also makes things difficult for me. Yan Yefeng slowly said, still with a sincere tone. But when Yi Yun heard this, he was amused. What did his difficulties have to do with him? Are you joking with me? Anything that was gambled is protected under the rules of the Tai Divine City, regardless of the Chu royal residence, Yang royal residence. Even the Divine Emperor himself had no power against it. The Tai Divine City did not care about any Chu royal residence's rules. What you lost as a bet meant it was lost. Doesn't count? Dream on. Little brother Yi Yun, don't be in a hurry to reject me. Hearing Yi Yun's sarcastic words, Yang Yefeng was not annoyed and remained calm. He said, I know little Bothery is in the Tai Divine City and is protected by the Divine City. But in the future, little brothery will have to leave the Tai Divine City, and it would be unwise to offend the Chu royal residence, which has deep connections. Dingquan was in the wrong and he has already been punished by the family. Furthermore, I can get Dingquan to apologize to you. Yang Yefeng said this and glanced at Yang Dingquan. Yang Dingquan was clenching his fists tightly, staring at Yi Yun. His eyes were filled with humiliation and frustration. To apologize to someone was a great insult for a proud person like him. Although it was something very costly to Yang Dingquan, it was worthless to Yi Yun. Yi Yun wiped his hands and said, an apology to exchange for something substantial? So Yang Dingquan originally did not have the right to bet the truth of the laws with me? Then let me ask you, if I were to be the loser in the battle with Li Hong, then would you return the Taya sacred technique to me? Yi Yun returned with a question. Yang Dingquan's eyes turned blood red. Yi Yun, I've already apologized. Don't you push it. Shut up. Yang Yefeng berated him. He did not wish for the matter to worsen any further. He had tried to lower his status as much as he could. He knew that his request was unreasonable, but he was hoping the reputation of the Chu royal residence would prove useful. No matter where it was, an individual's power was always subservient to a greater power. Unreasonable things would become reasonable. He believed that by giving Yi Yun a chance to resolve the situation, Yi Yun would compromise since, as the saying goes, a wise man suits his actions according to the situation. 20,000 dragon scale runes. We can give this as a form of compensation. Yang Yifeng announced his terms. This was something he had prepared beforehand. It was Yang Yifeng's bottom line to pay this amount of dragon scale runes, as a way for Yi Yun to resolve the situation amicably. 20,000 dragon scale runes? Yi Yun sneered deep down. He had spent 10,000 dragon scale runes and 2 glory points to exchange for the Taiya sacred technique. Glory points were priceless. It was not enough even if someone were to bid a 100,000 or even more dragon scale runes for one. Yang Yifeng was planning to use 20,000 dragon scale runes to exchange for something similarly priced to the Taiya sacred technique. That's enough to pay a month's rent, Yi Yun sarcastically said. Yang Yifeng's heart jumped when he heard this. The 2 followers behind him widened their eyes. Even Yang Dingquan was shocked. A rent of 20,000 dragon scale runes per month? Had he changed to a residence above the 60th floor in the Central Divine Tower? The Central Divine Tower was the Taiya Divine City's biggest super array. It gathered the heaven-earth yuan qi in a radius of 1,000,000 miles. It was the reason why it was the best place for cultivating in the Taiya Divine City. The cultivators in the Taiya Divine City all wished they could live in the Central Divine Tower. It was not only a symbol of glory, but it was key to their own cultivation as it significantly helped. Furthermore, the residences above the 60th floor were so rich in heaven-earth yuan qi that it made people envious. They knew that Yi Yun was rich. But even typical rich people would not dare to spend their hard-earned dragon scales like this. Was he not afraid to spend all his wealth and not be able to earn large amounts of dragon scale runes again? What conditions do you want? Yang Yifeng's face sank. Yi Yun was clearly ridiculing his condition as worthless by mentioning the rental of 20,000 dragon scale runes per month in the Central Divine Tower. 2 glory points as a form of equal exchange. Yi Yun was just about to learn the laws and needed to receive insight from the truth of the laws. But no matter how much Yi Yun abhorred the Chu royal residence, he still held the mentality of avoiding trouble whenever possible. 2 glory points were used to exchange for the Taiya sacred technique, and the truth of the laws was also worth an equal amount. Yi Yun could accommodate the Chu royal residence's rules, but it did not mean he was open to being bullied by the Chu royal residence. An equal exchange was Yi Yun's bottom line. Ha! Hearing Yi Yun asking for 2 glory points, Yang Yifeng's glance turned dark. You really want to refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit? Chapter 260, Desolate Heaven Technique Record. Yang Yifeng did not truly want to make a transaction with Yi Yun in the meeting today. To put it bluntly, he wanted to use the overwhelming stature of the Chu royal residence to pressure Yi Yun to yield to them, returning the truth of the laws back to the Chu royal residence. The 20,000 dragon scale runes were just a token amount to give Yi Yun a reason to resolve the situation. But Yi Yun had immediately gone on to say that he wanted glory points. Yang Yifeng had 1 glory point. It was insufficient, but even if he had enough, he would not use his glory points to exchange for the truth of the laws. After all, this was Yang Dingquan's problem. Yang Yifeng was only here to remedy the situation. Yang Yifeng initially planned to use this opportunity to impress the Chu royal residence's elders with his abilities, causing them to value him more. But Yi Yun was not able to appreciate favors. Yi Yun! I said everything nicely and was all smiles. I have given you enough face, yet you treat me as someone easily bullied? Yang Yifeng was an extremely talented Desolate Heaven master and had been valued by his family ever since he was young. Amongst the younger generation in the Chu royal residence, other than the heir of the Chu royal residence, he had the highest position. Under these circumstances, he had always been looked upon as a leader amongst the younger generation of the Chu royal residence. Normally, who wouldn't be subservient towards him? Today, he had lowered his stature to negotiate with Yi Yun. His every word had been polite and earnest. But even after doing all of that, this kid did not reciprocate and even treated him as a monkey. Who did this kid think he was? Your face? Yi Yun sneered. Your face isn't worth anything to me. I did not want to go against your Chu royal residence, but I am neither a fish on a chopping block for you to chop. If you are unwilling to take out 2 glory points and merely want to get the benefits without any risk, then there's nothing more for us to talk about. Yi Yun rebuffed Yang Yifeng immediately. Yang Yifeng was fuming. He angrily looked at Yi Yun and said, "Don't you regret this?" Saying that, Yang Yifeng rose. "Let's go." Yang Yifeng shook his sleeves and left. Yi Yun did not even bother to take a glance at them and simply carried on eating with his head down. Although it was troublesome to offend the Chu royal residents, Yi Yun was not afraid of them. The Chu royal residence may be powerful, but it could not hoodwink the masses in the Tai Divine Kingdom. Although he was insignificant compared to the Chu royal residents, Yi Yun was confident that in a few more years, he would be able to demonstrate enough value to make people know that he was a future sage. When that happened, the Chu royal residents would be unable to resist the combined forces of all the other factions trying to rope him in. Furthermore, the Chu royal residents might even try to befriend him at that time. It was after all just a manual that was leaked out. To offend a future sage because of something like that would definitely not be wise. As Yi Yun was about to leave after having finished his meal, there was stir in the cookhouse. A few people were excitedly passing on a message. Yi Yun listened carefully. Something big had just happened in the Tai Divine City. Luo Horror had broken the Desolate Heaven technique record left behind 30,000 years ago. Desolate Heaven technique record? Yi Yun was slightly surprised. It was no doubt that the record meant a lot. Luo Horror is impressive. People were very excited as they discussed Luo Huier's breaking of a record. After all, no one had broken a record in the Tai Divine City in the past thousands of years. Yi Yun was the only one who had broken a record with the herb-picking record. But the herb-picking record was just established out of a whim by the Tai Divine City to encourage hard-working people. It was just a record to fill the numbers and had no opportunity to leave one's name on the Sage Avenue. Compared to Luo Huier's breaking of the Desolate Heaven technique record, it was nothing. The Desolate Heaven technique's record was a huge record. It could be said to be one of the most important non-combat records in the Tai Divine City. It was a record where cultivators had to process desolate bones and produce desolate bone relics with various effects in a fixed amount of time. Finally, the Tai Divine City would assess the value of the desolate bone relics and pay for them in dragon scale runes. The final amount of this was the final score. This needed a Desolate Heaven master to have a well-honed Desolate Heaven technique to produce the high-grade and expensive desolate bone relics. At the same time, the Desolate Heaven master had to have a very low failure rate to accomplish this. The Desolate Heaven master also had to have a high production speed as well as plenty of Yuan Qi to sustain the long assessment. Stamina, speed, and precision were all essential. A person who could break the Desolate Heaven master record was undoubtedly a well-rounded genius. I'm so envious. Luo Horror was already number 1 on the man roll, now she has even broken a high-standard record. She really has all sorts of resources at her disposal. I heard that this record will reward Luo Horror with 100,000 dragon scale runes and 25 glory points. For cultivators that managed to break records, the dragon scale runes were just a token sum, the glory points were the real reward. 25 glory points? Amazing! Back when Yi Yun broke the herb-picking record, I think he was rewarded with 2 glory points. And that was after the Divine City's elders raised it provisionally. We are so lucky. We managed to see the breaking of a large record not seen in 1,000 years. Many people do not even have a chance to witness something like this. There was a flurry of discussion. They were all of worship and admiration towards Luo Huier. Ever since the Tai Divine City was established, every record had been constantly refreshed by numerous cultivators. After all, geniuses were not omnipotent. Some people were better in one field, so all of the records left behind were left there by the best in that field. Because of that, every broken record made people feel powerless and frustrated. It made many lose the courage to even attempt to break the record. As such, even though there were all sorts of records in the Taiya Divine City, they would usually stay unbroken for thousands of years. It was not an exaggeration to say that Luo Hui's breaking of the Desolate Heaven Technique record was a meaningful event in the Taiya Divine City. The achievement of breaking into the top 1,000 of the Heaven and Earth rolls in 1 year was nothing compared to it. Desolate Heaven Technique record. Luo Hui. Yi Yun returned his cutlery while murmuring. The Desolate Heaven Technique record awarded 25 glory points. Breaking records was definitely the fastest and most efficient way to accumulate glory points. Yi Yun wanted to exchange for the 10,000 Beast Totem and the subsequent volumes of the Taiya Sacred Technique. He was in great need of glory points. Yi Yun needed at least 30 more glory points to relieve him of his pressing problems. Are you really not going to think it through? A middle-aged man with a long face pressed a jade scroll on the table, looking earnestly at the girl in red sitting in front of him. After Luo Hui broke the Desolate Heaven Technique record, the news of it had quickly spread throughout the Taiya Divine Kingdom. Many major factions were alarmed. The main reason was that Luo Hui had no background. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere. With hope that she could be roped in, what major faction would not go mad over her? Many factions had already sent envoys at the level of elders and entered the Taiya Divine City through their connections. They had personally come to Luo Hui to give her all sorts of favorable conditions in an attempt to rope her in. These factions were mostly reclusive family clans. Many of them were even more powerful than the Chu royal residents. But Luo Hui was uninterested in them. Luo Hui smiled sweetly and politely said, "Thank you for the kind gesture, but Hui does not wish to be bound. Hui prefers freedom. If the conditions are not satisfactory, we can discuss them further." The long-faced middle-aged man asked, unwilling to give up. "It's really not necessarily. Thank you for Uncle Son's love, but Hui still prefers freedom, going wherever she wants." Luo Hui politely said, sounding as pleasant as a lark. "Really? Then that's a pity." The long-faced middle-aged man had lingered around for a long time, but he could only silently leave after seeing Luo Hui's lack of interest. When the door closed, Luo Hui's bright smile immediately disappeared. She curled her mouth and snorted, "What a small broken faction. To think you call yourself a reclusive family clan. Trying to use a bunch of junk to trick me into joining. Dream on." Her maid-servant, Donger, revealed her head from the room. "Miss, these people are so troublesome." "Indeed. Miss, there was a leaflet that was sent just now. The Chu royal residence's Yang Yefeng wishes to see you." Luo Hui paused for a while. "Who's Yang Yefeng?" He's number 10 on the man roll. He's ranked not far behind you. Previously, when Elder Yuehua was teaching, he was trying to get close to you," Donger said in a speechless manner. Yang Yefeng was after all an outstanding figure and ranked close to Luo Hui, but Luo Hui did not even know who he was. But Donger knew that it was not because Luo Hui's memory was bad, it was because she selectively chose to filter out insignificant people. The stronger one's soul was, the greater was one's ability at selectively forgetting things. In Luo Hui's own words, remembering these useless peoples was a waste of life. Another toad, not meeting. Luo Hui would patiently deal with the elders of large factions, but for a junior from the younger generation, Luo Hui could not even be bothered. "Yes." Donger nodded fiercely. "As expected, Miss is the best." Previously, people placed Miss, Qin Haoyan and Yi Yun as the three elites of Taiya. Now, they should know that Qin Haoyan and Yi Yun cannot compare to Miss? Donger proudly said. She was proud of Luo Hui from the bottom of her heart. To be born in a place like the Tai A Divine Kingdom, Yi Yun and Qin Haonan aren't bad for reaching such a level. Luo Horror said as she suddenly recalled something and curled her mouth. Yi Yun, that rascal which only knows how to use loopholes, actually managed to break a record first and stole my first place. Even though Yi Yun's record was nothing compared to Luo Hoyer's Desolate Heaven technique record, it still put Luo Horror in a bad mood. Luo Horror remembered Yi Yun only because of this. If not, she would not have bothered with the rookie ranking competition at all, and neither would she have bothered to remember who Yi Yun was. Donger, set up a soundproof barrier array. I want to cultivate. After all, because of the training in the Desolate Heaven technique, I have been putting my cultivating aside.